This is Black Ops 4, one of the year's hottest games, and it's only released a few weeks ago to critical acclaim. Many players have experienced the game on console, whether it be PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, but the underdog platform, the PC, is receiving more support than ever before. Third-party developer Beanox, previously known for their work on porting Call of Duty Black Ops 3 to last-generation consoles, has stepped up to the enormous task of porting Black Ops 4 to PC. So with all their promises of exceptional support and performance, how does Black Ops 3 on PC fare? And is it playable on a budget GPU? To test Black Ops 4, we will be using our mid-range PC to try and isolate graphics performance. Our i3 8100 and 32 gigs of RAM should let our 1050 Ti perform unimpeded, and if you want a more in-depth review of the specs of the 1050 Ti, check out our most recent review of the card here. So with all the hardware shenanigans out of the way, how does Black Ops 4 look? Well, to be brutally honest, when visually comparing the game, the only real noticeable difference is between medium and low settings. Lighting across all settings looks almost identical, and the only real difference between them is their shadow quality. Texture quality also isn't that great below the high settings, so lowering it much further will give some pretty questionable texture work. Also, this game chews up memory bandwidth and VRAM. At this mix of console-esque settings, VRAM usage stayed well above 3 gigs at all times, and if you're using a graphics card with less than 3 gigs of memory, well, good luck. System memory usage was also pretty high, hovering just at or above 8 gigs. And while playing Blackout, RAM usage was at nearly 10 gigs. So as it stands, Black Ops 4 looks like it's pretty rough on budget systems, and I wouldn't really knock anyone down for being a bit concerned about the 1050 Ti. Well, despite what I initially thought based on the benchmarks from the beta, performance has actually been improved quite a bit. While testing, we set Black Ops 4 to a combination of settings that we felt would provide the best visual quality without tanking frame rate. The settings we ended up going with were a mix of high, medium, and low settings. VSync is also turned on for all these tests, as this game has a weird bug where frame pacing is an issue, and turning on VSync fixes it, so we usually wouldn't turn on VSync, but in this case we had to. So yeah, that's also a problem. A settings list will be left below in the description. So the moment of truth, how does Black Ops 4 perform? We tested both at 1080p and a more optimized 900p without changing any of the other visual quality settings. To begin benchmarks, we first tested Blackout, and at 1080p, the results weren't bad, but in a competitive shooter, they weren't great either. With an average of 41 FPS and a minimum of 31, performance isn't exactly where I'd like it to be, especially for an online shooter. But on the flip side, dropping the resolution down to 900p yields a more playable result, with an average of 59 FPS and a minimum of 45. The multiplayer mode performed a little better at 1080p, but it also wasn't what I would consider preferable. Rocking an average frame rate of 48 and a minimum of 35, this mode actually performs better than Blackout, but the same sort of performance issues rear their ugly head here as well. 900p is more promising, with an average frame rate of 59 once again and a minimum of 47. While playing zombies, the performance at 1080p actually took quite a hit, achieving an average of 43 FPS with a minimum of 22. Now, the explanation as to why this is lower than multiplayer has to do with the amount of sprites. In Black Ops 4 Zombies, the newer maps, that being the Roman Coliseum and Titanic maps, have different weapon buy icons. Before, they used to be chalk outlines, which were just simple textures, but now they're these really intricate sprites, and they're really detailed, and they have a lot of detail packed into really one small area. It just tanks performance and memory bandwidth. Now, when moving on to 900p, the average of 59 FPS expected, but the minimum is also unusually low, hanging at 24 FPS. So yeah, Zombies this year is unusually rough on performance, and lowering effects quality doesn't really seem to help this. And this leads to the ultimate conclusion. Black Ops 4 is poorly optimized. For those of you who were around for the birth of this channel, you might remember my $350 PC series I made towards the beginning of this year. The first video I made of that series was on Call of Duty World War II, and I'm sad to say, but a lot of the issues rear their ugly heads here again. While technically not as bad, as we're using a much more powerful CPU to benchmark this game, memory and bandwidth usage is still really high. While the 1050 Ti can comfortably run this game at 900p, merely turning up the resolution can cause stutter and general frame rate issues. You can identify this as a memory bandwidth issue because these drops in frames only really happen when there's sprites on screen, which unfortunately for the 1050 Ti, there's a lot of sprites in this game. Whether it's the wall icons in Zombies or excessive amounts of blood splatter in multiplayer, once a sprite, or 12, pop up on screen, frame rate, no matter what the resolution, just nosedives. Just for comparison's sake, we also tested Battlefield 1 at both 1080p and 900p, and these drops when sprites popped up on screen weren't really an issue. And that really brings us to the conclusion. Is Black Ops 4 worth playing on the 1050 Ti? Well, first off, don't listen to the minimum requirements list. All the graphics cards listed have 2 GB of memory, and as their testing shows, even on the lowest settings, memory usage is still above 3 gigs, which if Beanox really tested these cards like they said they did, they should have realized that memory usage was really high. Even so, the 1050 Ti can still handle Black Ops 4 at reasonable settings at 900p. While 1080p is technically playable on this card, 60 FPS is what they designed this game to be experienced at. Now, don't take this review as a 1050 Ti hate video. We're more confused about the game's optimization, which isn't the 1050 Ti's fault at all. In fact, if you're willing to turn down a couple of settings, the experience on this card is actually pretty good. I've played many hours of zombies on this card at 900p, and I've had a blast the entire time. But if you're looking for a locked 60 FPS at 1080p, then a GTX 1066GB would be a much better choice. Not only is that graphics card more powerful, but the additional video memory would clear up some of the bandwidth issues as well. Now, as a side note, last year's COD also had some pretty high memory usage, and to their credit, it was actually fixed through a series of patches post-release, which admittedly, they shouldn't have the issues in the first place, but at least they got around to fixing them. Let's just hope they fixed the issues in this game because, as it stands, 2015's Black Ops 3 actually performs significantly better than the most recent title. And I think that's where I'm going to really wrap it up. Is the 1050 Ti a decent card for the money? Oh yeah, it is. But, is Black Ops 4's optimization a little questionable and poor at times? Also yes. And that's really it. Black Ops 4 is playable on the 1050 Ti, but you need some significant visual compromises in order to achieve what I would consider playable results. 60 FPS on this card is definitely possible, but 1080p, 1440p, and 2160p are definitely somewhat out of the question. And that's really all there is to this. The 1050 Ti is still an excellent budget graphics card, but this happens to be the one game that's an outlier. The poor game design of Black Ops 4 and the poor optimization that puts heavy emphasis on sprites really kind of tanks the 1050 Ti because it's lacking in a ton of bandwidth. And that's really it. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe to support the channel and click the bell icon so you can stay up to date on all our future uploads. And also, what's your experience on Black Ops 4 on PC? Are you experiencing performance issues as well, or is everything going great? Tell us below in the comments, we cannot wait to see what you guys have to say. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.